everybody, and welcome to day 3 of Industry Week. Thank you so much for attending. We are so very excited to present another day of solutions for you. So my name is Andrew Duncan. I am the Senior Partner Account Manager at Cloud Adoption Solutions. Cloud Adoption Solutions is a 100% women-owned certified sales partner. We specialize in getting Salesforce to work for you. So we're so very excited with Industry Week to present all these solutions for you. Each day has been very exciting and different. We've had a ton of people come in and participate. So it's been an absolute blast so far. So please do wait until the end. Please stick around. We will answer any questions you have. So if you do have a question, please drop it in the question and answer box, or you can contact us directly. We'd be very happy to answer it before the end. We do have our experts on until the very end. And then additionally too, we will be giving away a swag bag at the end of every day this week. Weirdly enough, it blew up on LinkedIn today and our messages that people wanted these t-shirts. We didn't know they'd be so popular. Everybody wants one. So if you want one of the t-shirts or some stickers, everybody loves a swag bag. Stick around to the end and we will randomly pick somebody. But we are so very excited for everyone to be here today for what's going to be a very exciting topic of financial services and professional services, you know, a huge industry. So let's go ahead and roll into it and get things going for you guys. But thank you so much. All right. So let's go ahead and start with the very first example. We decided this week that it would be really helpful for everybody on the webinar to see a more real life example. Instead of just like picking arbitrary problems that we see in the industry, take someone who has actually been in it, a client of ours, that needs help and has brought some issues to us, to take those examples and use them at a realer scale. So the first person in financial professional services is a director of IT. We chose this role and this person because we felt like they had some very inquisitive problems. They really had some different issues that were being brought up that we thought would really help people who were in this webinar today. So the number one question that we had was, you know, sensitive data must be protected. So in financial and professional services, you have millions and billions of dollars at stake. It's absolutely incredible, some of the amounts of money that are being, you know, pushed around and transacted. So the issue becomes, how do you protect that data? How do you make sure that the data is not being moved around, it's not being compromised? And then two-factor authentication needs to be enforced to protect the data. This is incredibly important because in order to protect that data, you need to create little barriers to make sure that you are alleviating any of those issues. And then users are also sometimes burdened by those two-factor authentication clicks and the processes when logging in frequently. So when you're creating those barriers, sometimes it can also hinder your sales team. So you're protecting it, but you're also making more steps for everybody who's involved. And as we know, sometimes with adoption, it can be very hard when people feel like they have to click around a lot, and they become less likely. So what are some ways that we can alleviate these problems, Shannon, and kind of move on from these issues?
Yes, I remember when this director of IT came to us and he was really frustrated, nervous, anxious. It was sort of at the beginning of the pandemic when their firm was really saying, how do we take what was a beautiful office culture, and they really did have a beautiful office culture, and translate that into this new work from home reality that we're faced with. So what they were finding, and they were already really good users of Salesforce, is that they needed to have this two-factor authentication in place. But what was happening is their users were logging in to multiple systems that they used all day long. And they were finding that they were constantly getting these pings telling them, here's your access code. You please tell us what your first child's name was. And there were so many different things that were coming at them from all of the systems that they were now using. So coping with that on the tech side, and then also coping with that on the personal human side, which is, hey, now I'm not faced with the people that I used to be able to say really quickly and look across the cube and say, how are we going to deal with this? Can you help me out with this? What is a good way that we can deal with this challenge? So Lucas sat down with this director of IT and said, okay, we're going to work in 3 stages. We're going to do a design, we're going to build it out, and then you're going to test it. And so the design part was very interactive, where this director of IT said, here's exactly what our users look like. You know, we've got so many people that are on every single one of our clients, because as we all know, financial and professional services are really high touch industries. So there's so many people that need access to the records, but it's also so important that we protect this data. And then they came up with this design. They said, this is how this is going to look. They built it out in the sandbox, tested it out, pushed it to production, and man, has that made a difference in this particular company's whole entire culture and their migration to now working from home. So Lucas is going to show you a demo that is going to be really cool that shows how this two-factor authentication or 2FA conditional flow was built that was based on business hours. So it reduced that burden for users to log in and have that sort of multiple clicking in all the systems they were doing in terms of Salesforce. And it also captured their login info in a custom object. So there would be that audit trail that the director of IT was really looking for to say, where is everybody? Where are they logging in? Who's accessing our data? And when are they doing that? So I know, Andrew, based on what we saw in the dry run, that this is going to be a really fun and interesting demo. And I'm very excited to introduce everybody to Lucas Feldman, who is a huge champion of automation. And I will tell you, we're always blown away by some of the things he comes up with. So Lucas, please take it away.
All right, thanks, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. So I'm going to show you a very fun demo, I'll say, many pieces to this demo. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump here into my dev org, and I'm going to run through a few of these topics with you, show you how the flow looks, how it was built a little bit, you know, some of the features to it. And then I'll run through logging in as a typical user, showing how they might get pinged for 2FA, or they might not, depending on the business hours and IP range. So let's go take a look at the flow. You can see we're doing a couple things in this flow, creating some records, getting some records. The big parts to look at are, you see these two actions, business hours and trusted range. So what this login flow is doing is looking to make sure that the user is logging in from an allowed listed IP range, and it's also within the business hours. Both of these objects can be set up from the setup menu in Salesforce. You know, so once they're in the flow this way, then it's easy to maintain. You can easily change them from the setup menu. Then once we go through, it decides, hey, does this user need 2FA, or are they allowed to just log in? So if we look at the second part of the flow, it would, if the user is pinged for 2FA, or if they're even a new user, that is the cool thing about this flow, it's very dynamic. You can see if they're a new user, they can register with any authenticator app here, or if they're an existing user, you know, they can enter their token here. And I'll demo that for you here shortly. If you go into the setup menu, you can see we're in the business hours. I have them set for what we, you know, the requirements for this. So it's just 7 a.m. to 5:30. I'm going to leave them like that for now, because you'll see when we log in, the user will not get pinged for 2FA. And then along with that, you attach the flow to what's called a login flow. Not a lot of things to see here, just a record, but these login flows can be assigned by profile. Actually, that's the only way to assign them. So you have to make a login flow for each profile that you want to run through this flow, right? So that's kind of cool. Also, you can have different login flows. They're useful not just for two-factor authentication, but you can add in extra features like capturing information from your users, asking a question, maybe a new feature release you're introducing to your org, you know, documentation. The possibilities are kind of limitless where you can use these login flows. They're a very useful feature, and you can guarantee all your users are going to see the information you put on them as they log in, because, right, you have to log into Salesforce every day. All right, so I have a incognito window open here, and we're going to log in. Now, like I said, I should not get pinged for 2FA as we go in. So you could see a little snippet of the login flow there. It was just checking hey, are we within business hours and the IP range, right? So now let's go make a little adjustment here. Let's go back to our business hours, and we're gonna demo, see, today is Thursday. Let's change this time, to 1 p.m. just so that we can demo how it looks if a user tries to log in and then gets pinged for 2FA or two-factor authentication. So I'll log back out. And I'm going to show you how it looks as a new user, because I'll show you like the full registration of the app, because that's the most fun piece to look at here. We'll do this. Very good. So remember, this is a new user, so you get the typical, this is typical of any authenticator app. You just open the app up in your phone, which I'm doing right now, and you can say add an account, and you scan the QR code, right? It adds your account, and then it gives you the token. And then all you have to do at this point is add that token. Oops. Wants me to type it out. And there you are. Now, the really cool thing about this conditional login flow is you can set it up to your requirements. Most of the time being, if the user is, logging in within business hours, and an allowed IP range, then they're not going to get pinged for 2FA, which gives them more flexibility, easier time to work, easier access to log in with the requirements that you set. But that gives you also the comfort knowing your org and your data is still protected, because you do require two-factor authentication. But we're making it fun and conditional and just better overall user experience. Now let's go back and I'll show you, as the users log in, we're capturing some of the information from the user table and the login information. So if we go back to the home screen here, I've made a custom object. It's called user login information. And every time they log in, as long as they're running the login flow, whether they get pinged or not, this captures all the information that we have about them. So you can see the login, the two that we demoed right here. These are just some of the fields we have on the record, but we can see the application, the browser, the IP, the login time, the type, and the status. You can see some here that have failed. So it's just a custom object. I added all the fields, did all the mapping, and the login flow is creating this every time a user logs in. Now, what this is really useful for is you can set up, live dashboards, reports, whatever you might want to do. It's just an easier way to get this information. Typically, you have to download this for each user or export it to a CSV. This is just a more dynamic, easier solution that you can even show to the whole org, or just different users within your org that this information might be very useful to. And another great thing you could do with it is maybe set email alerts or any criteria you come up with from the fields and the data you're capturing here that you might send out to your IT team or someone that looks like a suspicious login. So just another way to help keep your org secure. All right, that's it. Thank you.
That was so great. It was so good. And I love hearing you describe it as fun and conditional, because I think that shows your status as a flownatic, right?
Yes, it does. I love building automation, especially with Flow. It's usually my go-to tool.
I love it so much. I love that you called it fun and conditional. That's good. I know the director of IT thought it was amazing too, because it provided all of the information that was necessary, heading into this new way that we work in 2020.
Absolutely. When you have so much at stake, it's really, really incredibly important. So we now have our challenge number 2. So thank you so much, Lucas. That was incredible. We really appreciate you taking the time. So now we have our second challenge, right? And we wanted to pick another person within a financial service firm that we found was really asking these, once again, very important questions, these very needed, issues and topics that they're bringing up. We thought that they would be, presentable in a way that would be very helpful for our attendees today. So the VP of client success, every financial firm has one. Client success is so very detrimental to the business. Making sure that everybody's happy, everybody knows where they stand as far as, onboarding. And when you're dealing with such large sums of money, keeping people happy and that client success very high is super, super important. So client services need clients to fill out and verify sensitive personal information, and the process is all manual, leaving room for data transcription, hygiene errors, and requirements for follow-up. So we see this all the time. The customer needs to fill this out themselves because it's sensitive personal information. And you don't want to do it over the phone, or maybe you don't want to be doing it through email. So when that process is manual and it doesn't give them that space to, they have to fill it out themselves, those transcripts can often have huge gaps, and not only hygiene errors like spelling errors, incorrect information, but those follow-up appointments only serve as a detriment to the business in the process because it elongates the sales cycle. It makes things harder to keep up with, and it oftentimes can annoy those very important clients. So Shannon, how can we not annoy our clients? How can we make sure this data is correct and that we're doing it, within the right context?
Right. And you're right. I think the thing that we really know to hold true about financial services and professional services is that clients are everything. Clients are really the lifeblood of these industry pythons, right? One of the things that we've seen is that data is something that is challenging in every industry, right? And we've been hearing about big data for 10 years. Big data, what does big data mean? But the most important thing about data is making sure that that data is as clean as possible. And that is something that this VP of Client Services was saying to us. Hey, look, when people fill out pieces of paper, we often misspell. We can't read their writing. We don't know what to write in here, or people are typing it in and they're transposing 2 numbers, 2 letters. And I'll tell you what, when you're talking about financial services, you cannot take 2 numbers and transpose them. It just can't happen. So one of the things that we did when we were looking at how to fix this problem for this VP of Client Services is, how can we introduce automation to the service so that when we are working with these clients and with everybody on the team that's focused on the client, that there is some automation that makes sure that that data exchange is as limited as possible. So we aren't looking for ways to say, how do I manually pull this inside of here? How do I type this in myself? How do I find it somewhere else? And so in this particular solution, Lucas worked with his VP of Client Services to say, okay, we want to limit the data exchange to make sure that everything is not only secure, but there is a real reduction in the room for error and incomplete data, because that is the worst possible outcome. So they sat down and followed that same exact process, which is design, build, and test. And they really came up with something that I thought was very elegant, captured all of the needs. And I think one of the things that we heard very recently from this VP of Client Services is that they are going to try to apply this to other areas of their organization and not just in this one particular thing. So, Lucas, your last demo was so powerful, and I know this one's going to be too. I can't wait to see what you have to show us in terms of this one, because this was a truly powerful solution.
Thanks, Shannon. This one's going to be great. I'm excited to show this demo to everyone. So, give a little background here. We are at an opportunity. We're just going to demo a new opportunity closes for a new client, right? We have tagged this in our contact role, who the main decision maker contact is. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, it wasn't green. So, and so what I'm going to show you is how we are going to send documents to our new client to get some of that important information from them. Mailing address, social security number, mobile number, and title. all of things which are important. And a lot of times that data gets written down or transcribed wrong, let's say, right? If somebody fills that out on paper and pen, when you ask them for that information, then someone has to take it back and put it back inside Salesforce or keep moving it around. It's very easy to lose numbers, addresses, things that way, and put in the wrong information. So what we're doing is we're using a couple tools here. It's called Conga Composer and Conga Sign, right? So that's going to generate this document for us and send it to our new client. And then the cool thing we'll look at, the big part of the demo, is once the client fills out this information that you're asking from them and signs it, that data is going to automatically write back and populate inside the Salesforce record. So let's head on in. Well, first let's close our opportunity. That would be nice.
Always nice to close an opportunity.
Close wanting is the most fun, right? We get a little confetti. Great. All right, so let's go to our contact where we're going to send our documents. Now, typically in financial services and professional services, you have a team that would do this as part of their onboarding. Okay, so what we've done is we've created this button, and the button has many parameters to it, and it works with Conga Composer and Conga Sign. So we're going to click this button, send OB documents, which is just short for onboarding documents. It's going to fire up Conga here for us. Right, and you can see here, we're going to go into Conga Sign. The cool thing with this is there's activity logging. So, on this contact record, we're going to mark down as a task that the onboarding documents were sent. That gives visibility to the rest of your team that's handling onboarding to know, hey, these documents were sent to this contact already. So let's go ahead and click this button. This will take us in. So what it's doing now is, merging the document. It uses merge tags given to us by Conga. A lot of information here. We can see the document we're sending. We can see the contact we're sending this to and their role as a signer. And now I'm going to preview and tag so you can see exactly what is going on inside here. Now, when you send documents like this with this write back functionality, you can only send to one person, one user at a time. So we have our onboarding document. I'll show you closer when we get in to fill it out. And what we've done is you can pre-fill the tags on the document, the template that we draft this from. So you can see all these tags are pulled on already. We don't have to do that. This is all automated. So I just wanted to demonstrate that for you, that this is done already. But typically the user could just send the document right away without having to pull on all the custom tags that we've made. So let's send this off. Cool. And now the window I'm showing you now is what I opened up inside my inbox, right? So it brings up the Conga sign, very easy. You just have to agree. Everyone has their terminology, their language. So we can see our document here. So it says my name, we had as a merge field. And now this is the really fun part. You're asking your client to give this information, right? So we're going to go through and fill this out. Mailing street. Let's do, oops. Pittsburgh. Then we'll put a social security number in. Mobile number. and a title. And so you can see it already pulled in my name and the date, and now we're going to sign the document. You can choose to draw your signature or view additional styles. Pretty simple. So we hit adopt and sign, come up here, hit complete signing. Great, that part is done. Super simple. Now we're going to go back inside the Salesforce org and show you what has happened. So we can see the file, a copy of the PDF file also ends up here inside Salesforce. So this is great. And then remember the fields we filled out. You can see the mailing address is here, the social security number, mobile number. All that data that the user filled out is automatically sent back to Salesforce, alleviating user error and making it super simple and automated solution for onboarding documents. That's it. Thank you.
That is a great one. Thank you so much, Lucas. I'll tell you, Andrew and I were having a conversation a couple weeks ago about how common the problem is with missing data. And there are so many ways that you can solve that. But the best way is to reach out to the person who owns the data and say, what's your address? What's your social security number? What's your phone number? What kind of other information do you need? So that write back and that automation is such a cool thing, right, Andrew?
Yeah, it's absolutely great, and alleviating some of those human errors that can come in, and making the process a bit more streamlined is important too, because as we know, clients can be very busy, and financial services especially, they're normally dealing with a lot of stuff at the same time. So it's really helpful when you can make the process a bit easier and a bit quicker for them. Now, we're going to go ahead and move on to the question portion. I know we have a couple that came in, so Shannon, can we just go ahead and go with question 1?
Definitely. If anybody has any more questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat box, but I'll start with this one. Lucas, that is certainly for you. How do you decide when to introduce automation?
That's a really good question, Shannon. I would say anytime your users are doing a process and it's the same process, repetitive tasks, doing the same repetitive tasks day in and day out, right? That's like the number one piece to get that process, or to just start thinking and brainstorming, hey, what can we automate here? I always tell everyone, let's start with the things you're doing most often every single day, right? And then to follow up with that, think of everything that's happening when you're doing these tasks, and how can we automate that? We need criteria of what to happen, what's going to happen during this process. What are we updating? What objects are we touching? What things are happening? If we want to automate something, we need to make sure we have the full picture and all the information to automate that. So, you need to start digging in a little bit deeper, maybe asking your users what they do most often and for what reason, and gathering all those requirements and getting that criteria together to automate things.
That's great. It reminds me of the powerful idea of Savoir, that Salesforce administration by walking around, which Mike Gerholt really pioneered. It's a little different now that we can't walk around and see people sitting at their desks and in their cubes, but just casually saying, hey, show me how you enter an opportunity. Show me what you do when you're managing all these different client pieces of functions or data. And when you can watch it, that will give you an idea of the things that they're doing over and over and over again. And Lucas, I know you're an automation champion. A lot of times you're saying, why are you guys doing that? You could just set up a trigger or a flow.
Yeah, just think of the logic and we can build it. Salesforce makes it easier because it is so powerful. So they give us these very powerful tools to build this automation. All you need to come up with is the logic, and we can turn that into some beautiful flows.
And across
cool, it's really fun.
And across the board, that's something that we do with all of our clients when we first meet them is say, hey, let's see how you operate Salesforce. Let's see how you log a piece of activity. Let's take a look into the way that your normal sales process goes. So across the board in every service, that's, incredibly important, but detrimental in financial services and professional.
Yeah, we love to say work smart. Work smart. You can still work hard, but you should work smart. Don't duplicate anything. The second question is one that I love, and Lucas, this is also for you, and it comes down to 2FA and MFA. So they're asking, what's the difference between two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication?
Okay, that's a what's I'm trying to think. The question has the answer within itself, but very complicated, right? Two-factor authentication just stops with two factors of authentication. So that typically would be, your username and password login, and then you're going to get pinged either by email or mobile, right? Multi-factor authentication can go more layers deep, use different tools, use different applications that could connect to Salesforce or any system. And there could be 3 levels of authentication, or you go into another system. Things that are getting popular these days are applications that take single sign-in into account, right? And that can go along with multi-factor authentication and 2FA. So, what seems to be popular is clients are building these applications that a user has to use multi-factor authentication to get into. But once they're in there, it's full of all these tiles of all the applications, that they need access to working for that particular company, right? And then what's cool from there is they can just click the different applications and go directly into them without having to log in again, because, hey, the user has done their multi-factor authentication one time, that's great. And now single sign-in into all the other applications.
That's great. That's really helpful. And I know we see that a lot. And I think I've been seeing it pop up in a lot of Trailhead modules too, where, there's MFA, there's 2FA. And I think a lot of people transpose those. And really what it comes down to, if you want to integrate Schwab or Black Diamond or Orion, look at what the specifications are with those applications and look at the way that your tech stack is built out internally. Do you have SSO? Is this something that you can require MFA at the beginning, but once they're inside, maybe it's 2FA. And I think, that's something definitely when you're looking at a tech audit that you would evaluate. So great question though. It's one that, it sounds so simple once you've heard the explanation, but when you see it, it can be very confusing because there's just FA flying around everywhere. We have another question here for the Flownatic, Lucas. Can you also automate responses to exceptions or failures of a process?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Shannon. We're always getting asked about error handling. It's a very important part of the whole automation process, right? Because if you feel like your automation's running and it's doing everything, but then something important doesn't happen, right? You want to get notification of that. That's super important because you expect the automation to work as it is. But if it does not, that can trigger a whole kind of waterfall effect of many other processes not working as well if you just miss that one little part. So yeah, Salesforce gives us a couple ways to do that. You can use Process Builder or Flow. They can both subscribe to what's called platform events. Now, this is getting really nerdy here, but it's really cool. So platform events, basically anytime, there's a couple different platform events, but I'll just talk about 2 quickly. You can subscribe to Flow errors. That means any automation you build with Process Builder or Flow, you can subscribe to those events, and then you can capture all that data and then do whatever you want with it. You can make a custom notification so that your Salesforce bell lights up. You can send emails. You can get really wild and send it to a web service to another system, right? And have a central repository for all your error handling of all your systems. And then along with that, you can also subscribe to Apex errors, mainly the batch and queuable kind, that has its own event. And you can do the same thing with that. Flow or Process Builder can catch those events, gather all the information, and then send an email, send a custom notification, send to another system. So that is very dynamic. The limits are pretty much open to do anything you want with your errors.
That's great. Thanks. Great question and really great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so
That was,
much. I don't see any other questions coming in, so it looks like we're all answered up for the time being. Shannon, we have one last order of business before we move along to the exit, which will be picking someone for the swag bag. So let's go ahead and pick a random person from the participant list.
Yep. So I'm going to roll number 4. And that is, Marnie. Okay, perfect. Marnie,
great.
if you just message us your address and your t-shirt size, we'll get that swag bag off to you. And yeah, that'll be fun and exciting. Congrats.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. And guys, we do have one more day of industry left tomorrow. Tomorrow we have some software as a service and some other very interesting pieces. So it's going to be a really exciting day. We're going to be hearing from Natalie and Lucas. It's going to be a lot of information. So please do sign up if you'd like to attend. And technology is the big topic. So a lot of people have registered and they're going to be participating. So we're very, very excited. But thank you so much, as always, for joining. Thank you to our panelists, Lucas for joining and Shannon. But everybody have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.